Evolution. Now, this is the classic evolution of man. Sorry to be sexist, but it's just there are no pictures, I don't think, of this happening with a woman instead. But yeah, evolution of man sort of says that ancient humans were essentially monkeys. And then what happened is we evolved from those monkeys. We slowly lost our hair. We started to walk more on our feet rather than using our hands. And so, our brains also developed, and we've evolved from monkeys. A lot of the things that people then turn around and say, and we're going to talk about this as well, is, later on, is because one of the arguments against evolution is like, if we've evolved from monkeys, then why are there still monkeys around? It's like, well, there are some arguments against that too. So that's something that we're going to talk about as we go through. The short answer for those of you guys that want to know is the reason there's still monkeys is because they didn't evolve. Just because some apes evolved into humans didn't mean all apes evolved into humans. It's kind of like saying how some wolves evolved into dogs, but not all wolves evolved into dogs, or else we wouldn't have wolves. So that's how, but we're going to talk about more of that later on. This picture sort of gives an idea of how humans have evolved and changed over time. You can see that in each of these pictures there is a change. There's less hair from picture 2 to picture 3. From picture 3 to picture 4, the person's standing more upright. From picture 1 to picture 2, the arms have gotten shorter. So the arms actually decrease in length, especially if we look at picture 4 to picture 5. But yeah, so this is generally what evolution is. Today's lesson, very first one on evolution, and we haven't got too much time, so I'll make sure I stop rambling. Lesson 47, evolution introduction. We will be able to define evolution. So that's my goal by the end of today, is to define what evolution means. Okay. So I would like you to jot this down if that wasn't clear as well. If you guys can't see this, make sure you let me know. I've got some videos to show you about this stuff, period 6, so probably and they're going to deal with we're going to maybe talk about the first style lesson, period 6. It's going to be a little bit chill, so it's not going to be necessarily, this first couple of lessons is not going to be as intense, but we'll make our way through it anyway. Okay. So let's start. So first things first, we need a definition of evolution. The definition for evolution is one that I've taken from Styles, one that I think is a pretty good definition because it's pretty broad, but we're going to start with it right. But we're going to have to define some words as we define it. So let's talk about it here. Evolution is any change within the heritable traits or behaviors within a population across generations. That is our definition. Now, that's a wordy definition, but it covers everything. And what it actually means is that even though our definition is pretty complicated, it covers everything. So firstly, it's got any change, which we sort of know we'll be talking about a change within the hereditary traits. Now let's talk about what hereditary traits or heritable trait is. These are traits that we inherit from our parents, traits we have in common with them. This is what we were talking about. This is what we were talking about way back in, this is what we were talking about back in term 2. These are the heritable traits or visible traits. These are, if you remember the word, phenotypes. So we're talking about the phenotype. So if your mum has blue eyes and your dad has blue eyes and you have blue eyes is a phenotype. Blue eyes is a hereditary trait. It's something that you have gotten, that you have in common with your parents. If your mum has curly hair and your dad has straight hair, and then you have curly hair, then you have inherited that trait from your mum. You have gotten that trait from your mum. You remember we spent a long time talking about inheritance. And inheritance is when your parents pass something down to you. So what we're saying in this phase is any change within the hereditary trait. So any change in what gets passed down. All behaviors. Now behavior means, and you guys know what bad behavior is. A behavior is just a way of acting. So, and so what you've got is any change within something that they've got, or your behaviors within a population across generations, within a group of animals, a group of plants, over several generations. And a generation is a collection of organisms born at the same time. I don't like this word born because, and I'll be honest with you, even though I wrote it, is because it's not like when we talk about plants, plants aren't born, but you can still have a generation of plants. And that's because they might grow from seeds and stuff like that. I could have said a collection of organisms created at the same time, but I thought that's going to sound really weird. So now the word here, one word I haven't defined here is a population. And I might have to sort of go over that next period 6, because a population links to this idea of from ecosystems. A population is a group of organisms. So you can have a population of ants, and that might be 100 ants or 1,000 ants. You have a population of fish. You could have a population of rose bushes. You can have populations of anything. So we're talking about a group of animals where some kind of trait changes across them. So maybe for some reason all of the rose bushes start making red roses instead of yellow roses. Maybe all of the ants start, get more legs, because that would be a trait that gets inherited from one generation to the next. Do you guys have any questions on this, or do you guys need more time to copy this down?
Are you supposed to be presenting?
Yes.
Oh,
He is present. Oh.
Yeah. Are you or are you not?
He is present.
Is he?
Yeah, he is.
He isn't.
Oh, for me he is.
For me, it isn't. I just see his face.
Did you pin it? Did you pin his
No.
face?
I'm not pinned to anything. I just see his face. That's it.
Oh, what the heck?
Is there anyone else that's in Brendan's position where you can't see?
Never mind. Don't worry about it.
Brendan, because I want to move on, you might have to maybe take a screenshot of this.
No, I already got it. Don't worry, I'm good. I got it.
All right. So I'm going to move on to the next idea here. So there's a lot more to unpack with this, but I want to talk about maybe first is I would like to talk about this idea of I wanted to talk about a little bit of an example here. So a giraffe is an example. One giraffe gives birth to a baby with a longer neck. Now that is a hereditable trait. So maybe that giraffe has a longer neck, so then they give birth to a giraffe with a longer neck. Another giraffe in that generation gives birth to a baby with an even longer neck, and so on and so on. The changed hereditable trait is neck length. So as time goes on, the neck length gets longer and longer and longer. It's a hereditable trait, so that means it's something that gets passed down from generation to generation, and that trait is changed. Now, we're not going to talk about, we could very easily talk about why that trait was a good trait to pass on, and why that maybe that trait would help that particular organism. But we're not going to talk about that because that ties in with natural selection. That's going to be our big topic next period, is we're going to talk about, well, why do some traits get passed on and other traits don't? And why is it an advantage to have natural selection? Well, we're not going to talk about that today. All we're going to talk about today is just the idea that there is a trait, which is neck length, which changes over time. And of course, as well, this is why I'm saying this ties into everything. You can sort of start to tell why evolution doesn't just change organisms, but also has to have some link to the ecosystem. Because honestly, why would some traits get pushed as being a good trait, whereas other traits get bad? It's going to be dependent on the ecosystem. I'm going to leave this up for another minute, and then I've got like about, I think maybe one more slide, maybe two more slides for you to write down. All right, about 30 seconds longer. All right, we got one more slide-ish to do with evolution. So, and we've got, like, obviously we've got lots of slides to do with evolution, but we've got one more slide today. But this is sort of where I wanted to start. I want to take just because this is brought up earlier as well, evolution happens over generations, not to one organism. Now, obviously here I've got a picture of, obviously if you don't not aware, this is Pokemon, and Pokemon have evolutions where you can start with a Charmander and turn it into a Charmeleon and a Charizard. But the idea is that it happens to this one Pokemon. And they call it evolution. Technically, this is not evolution. Now, this same thing happens as well in nature. If you take a caterpillar, and that caterpillar turns into a cocoon, which then turns into a butterfly, that is not evolution. If you want to know what that's called metamorphosis, which I think is even a much cooler name than evolution, but still metamorphosis. But it's happening to the same organism. The reason this is not evolution is that, yeah, sure, the traits in this animal are changing. I'm not going to deny that. But you're going from this caterpillar that can't fly to a butterfly that can fly. But the main idea is that this is not happening over generation over generation. If this butterfly has offspring, children, they will be caterpillars. There is no chain. They don't become butterflies that are better at flying. They are just caterpillars again. So there is a difference between and when we talk about evolution, we need to just keep this in mind. Evolution happens over generations, not just to one organism. So you can't just say, man, I'm going to go evolve some wings. That would not be an evolution, because the only way, and you can't evolve wings, the only way that evolution can exist is over generations and generations. So if your great granddaughter had wings, that might be evolution, but you getting wings is not evolution. So I guess one of the things that might be good to talk about here is, well, what does cause evolution? And it's no surprise that evolution is caused by genetics. Now, this is going to be, what time we've got? 5 minutes left. Last slide then, that's good. Evolution is going to be caused by genetics. Now, honest to God, most of the time when you copy your cells in your body, they will be identical. And if every sort of if every person if every single cell organism copied by just copying all of its DNA 100% perfectly, then we would have no real need for evolution. We probably wouldn't have as good evolution in humans as well either, without the fact that just like human beings, DNA is not perfect. Because what DNA can do is it can make mistakes, mutations. This is the last slide. I'm going to get you guys to write down. Mutations. When DNA replicates, sometimes it makes mistakes. It might make a mistake because it's copying some DNA that's already dodgy. It might make a mistake because it accidentally misses a DNA base when it's like it's supposed to copy guanine and accidentally misses it. It might actually supposed to copy guanine, accidentally copy cytosine instead. There are a lot of reasons why something might make a mistake.
Well, is there a way to prevent autism or like Down syndrome?
Not really. There are some way. What they can do is sometimes they do genetic testing. So what they sometimes do is they will test. You can get your baby before it's born genetically tested, so you can sort of know what the risks are of it having these mutations. But yeah, and of course, yeah, but there's certain things you can't stop. If you think about it as well, like for example, a lot of cancer is caused by cells that are just, their DNA is being corrupted. So then cells just start stuffing up, and then they start making cancer cells instead of regular cells. These mistakes can occur in your cells in your body, and so you could have, and they can also occur when making sex cells. So then those mutations will get passed on. Some mutations make no change to the overall organism. You might have a cell in the middle of your brain that is unfortunately, its DNA is corrupted, but it's corrupted in a part of the DNA that doesn't matter. It's like saying if the back 2 pages of your textbook got wet, doesn't matter because there's nothing useful in those back 2 pages. But sometimes you might have, instead of the back 2 pages getting wet, the middle of your textbook gets wet, which is right on the page that says, this is going to be on the exam, and if that page gets destroyed, that's going to really affect your mark, just like if you can radically change an organism, for a good thing or a bad thing. You might have a mutation that accidentally means that you can't digest a particular protein. That protein might be lactose, and so therefore you become lactose intolerant. And so if you're lactose intolerant, it's because the reason that you're lactose intolerant is because of some kind of gene mutation. Your DNA stuffed up when it was replicating, and so therefore now you can't drink lactose. And then that trait might get passed on to your children. Now they can't drink lactose because you are lactose intolerant and you passed on that trait to your children. So you can sort of see here that it's not perfect. It's not like, oh, great, cool, it's always going to make your life better. One of the classic examples, well, my example is my mum wears glasses. My dad wears glasses. Big surprise, me being their child wears glasses. This is not a trait that makes me a better, human. It's just something that, it's just something that shows up. Others might radically change the organism for good or bad. Mutations can get passed on to their offspring. So that's what we're talking about with regards to mutations. Ladies and gents, I'm going to stop talking to you guys now. Once you guys have copied this down, you guys can leave the Zoom session and then I will close it down and I'll see you guys period 6 where we're going to continue talking a little bit more about this sort of idea of mutations and how they occur and how does it work? How does copying DNA, how does it actually lead to mistakes? And then we're going to probably start talking about it. But once you copy this down, you guys can leave. Thank you guys for paying such close attention.